Welcome back to another episode of Agentic AI, the future of intelligent systems. I'm your host, Navveen Balani. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that I believe will fundamentally change how we think about artificial intelligence over the next decade. It isn't a new model, it isn't a new benchmark, and it certainly isn't about which AI provider has the smartest model. Instead, it's about the economics of AI. Today, almost every conversation around artificial intelligence eventually comes down to one thing: tokens. How many input tokens? How many output tokens? Which model is cheaper? Which provider gives the lowest cost per million tokens? We've become so accustomed to measuring intelligence in tokens that it's easy to believe this is how AI will always work. But history tells us something very different. Every major technology platform begins by selling the technology itself. Then, over time, that technology becomes abundant, inexpensive, and eventually almost invisible. The operating system stopped being the product. The web server stopped being the product. Databases stopped being the product. Containers stopped being the product. And I believe we're about to witness exactly the same transformation in artificial intelligence. Not because AI is becoming less important, but because intelligence itself is becoming infrastructure. And when that happens, the economics of AI fundamentally change. If you look back over the last 40 years of computing, the pattern repeats itself with remarkable consistency. In the 1990s, enterprise operating systems were incredibly expensive. Organizations paid enormous licensing fees for Unix because the operating system was viewed as strategic infrastructure. Then Linux arrived. Open source changed everything. The operating system became a commodity, and value shifted upward into enterprise software, cloud platforms, and digital services. The same thing happened with web servers. Companies once invested heavily in commercial web servers because that was considered a competitive advantage. Then Apache became dominant. Suddenly, nobody was differentiating themselves because they owned a better web server. Instead, they differentiated through the applications they built. The story repeated again with application servers, with databases, with version control, with containers, with Kubernetes. Even machine learning frameworks followed exactly the same path. TensorFlow and PyTorch transformed AI development by making the underlying technology broadly accessible. Every generation of computing followed the same economic law. The foundation eventually commoditized, the value moved somewhere higher every single time. Now ask yourself, why should foundation models be any different? Today, we have proprietary models, open models, large models, small models, reasoning models, multimodal models. Every month, they become faster, cheaper, more efficient, and increasingly interchangeable for many business problems. That's exactly what commodity technology looks like. We may not have reached that destination yet, but we're certainly moving toward it, which means something important is about to happen. If intelligence becomes abundant, what becomes valuable? Today, we live in what I call the token economy. In the token economy, customers are effectively paying for access to intelligence. Every interaction is metered, every prompt has a price, every response consumes tokens. Businesses compare providers based on model quality, pricing, latency, and inference efficiency. The central question is simple: what does intelligence cost? That question makes perfect sense today. But I don't believe it will be the question organizations ask 5 years from now. Because once intelligence becomes plentiful, people stop buying intelligence. They start buying capabilities. That brings us to what I believe is the next stage: the skill economy. This is where AI becomes really interesting. Think about it. A foundation model can answer almost any question. A prompt tells the model what to do. An agent coordinates multiple steps, but none of those things are actually reusable business capabilities. A reusable capability is something different. Imagine a contract review skill, or a procurement optimization skill, a compliance assessment skill, a fraud detection skill, a sustainability reporting skill. Each one performs a specific business function. Each one has defined inputs, defined outputs, clear expectations, and perhaps most importantly, it can be reused across many different applications. That's a very different asset from a prompt. It's a very different asset from an individual agent. And it's much closer to what software libraries became during the evolution of software engineering. Think about software development. Nobody builds applications by rewriting networking libraries, or authentication, or encryption, or logging. We compose reusable building blocks. AI will evolve in exactly the same way. Organizations won't rebuild the same procurement logic every time they create another agent. They'll reuse the procurement skill. The same compliance skill should support a finance assistant, an audit workflow, a procurement platform, or a legal review system without starting over each time. That's where value begins to compound. Not at the model layer, not even at the agent layer, at the skill layer. Because skills are portable, composable, reusable, and reusable assets always become more valuable than isolated implementations. That also changes the questions customers ask. Today, buyers ask, which model are you using? Tomorrow, they'll ask, what AI skills does your platform provide? That's a profound shift. The model becomes infrastructure, the skill becomes differentiation. But even the skill economy isn't the final destination. Businesses don't wake up in the morning hoping to buy more AI skills. They don't care whether an agent uses 15 tools or 5. They don't celebrate consuming 10 million tokens instead of 2 million. Businesses invest in AI for one reason: to create measurable business outcomes, increase revenue, reduce operational cost, improve customer experience, accelerate innovation, strengthen compliance, reduce environmental impact. That's why I believe the final stage is what I call the value economy. In the value economy, nobody is buying intelligence. Nobody is buying skills, they're buying outcomes. The only metric that really matters becomes, what business value did AI create? Interestingly, this also changes how we think about efficiency. In the token economy, efficiency means consuming fewer tokens. In the skill economy, efficiency means reusing capabilities instead of rebuilding them. But in the value economy, efficiency means something much more important: delivering the greatest business outcome using the smallest amount of intelligence necessary. That one idea changes everything. Because when you minimize unnecessary intelligence, you automatically reduce cost, you reduce latency, you reduce infrastructure requirements, you reduce energy consumption, you reduce carbon emissions, you reduce operational complexity. And that's exactly the philosophy behind lean agentic AI. Lean agentic AI isn't about using less AI, it's about using the right amount of AI, just enough intelligence to maximize business value. No more, no less. Efficiency stops being an engineering optimization, it becomes a competitive business strategy. Now, here's what's interesting: the organizations that win in the next decade won't necessarily be the ones with access to the biggest models, nor will they be the ones spending the most on AI. They'll be the organizations that learn how to transform intelligence into reusable capabilities, and reusable capabilities into measurable business outcomes. Because that's where the economics of AI are heading. Just as every previous computing revolution eventually moved beyond the underlying technology, AI is beginning to move beyond the model itself. The model will always matter, but it won't be the source of competitive advantage. Competitive advantage will come from what you build with intelligence, not simply from having access to intelligence. So, where does all of this leave us? The token economy taught us to optimize every prompt. The skill economy will teach us to optimize every capability. And the value economy will reward only one thing: business outcomes. Ironically, the organizations that are obsessed with token efficiency today are already preparing themselves for that future. Not because tokens will always be expensive, but because they've learned to ask a much more important question: what is the smallest amount of intelligence required to create the greatest business value? That question optimizes cost, it optimizes performance, it optimizes energy, it optimizes carbon, it simplifies systems, and ultimately, it creates competitive advantage. For more than 40 years, computing has followed the same pattern. Foundations become commodities, capabilities become platforms. Platforms create business value. Artificial intelligence is now entering exactly the same transition. The token economy isn't disappearing because AI is becoming less important. It's disappearing because intelligence itself is becoming infrastructure. The competitive advantage won't belong to the organization with the biggest model or even the smartest agent. It will belong to the organization that builds the most valuable AI skills and consistently turns those skills into measurable business outcomes. Because in the next era of AI economics, intelligence becomes infrastructure, AI skills become the differentiator, and business value becomes the only currency that matters. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.